What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about the newest film from director Oz Perkins. And I have been a really big fan of Oz Perkins since I saw The Black Coat's Daughter for the first time. I really loved that movie. I think visually it was astonishing. It had really great performances and it had a very dark, sinister edge to it. And I was really impressed with how great he did with that movie. And since then, I've seen most of the films in his catalog. I'm actually a pretty big defender of Gretel and Hansel. I think that it's visually great. I think that the story is really fantastic. I think that movie was incredibly misunderstood. I really enjoyed it a lot. Long Legs, obviously, I praised it. It was in my top three movies of the year that year. I was not a fan of The Monkey. I thought that the kind of switch into silly, overblown comedy. He didn't lean far enough into it, in my opinion, for it to be successful. And the movie was way too bloated. It was really kind of bland for the most part and had some really terrible performances. And when this trailer came out, I had a feeling that this was going to be much more aligned with like Long Legs, very sinister, dark subject matter. I actually really loved the structure of the trailer and was very curious as to what the movie was going to provide. And today I'm going to be telling you about his newest film, Keeper. Keeper is directed by Oz Perkins. Liz and Malcolm escape for a romantic anniversary weekend at a secluded cabin. When Malcolm suddenly returns to the city, Liz finds herself isolated and in the presence of an unspeakable evil that reveals the cabin's horrifying secrets. So, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Oz Perkins. I think that he's incredibly talented. I've loved a lot of the movies in his catalog thus far, but unfortunately, I cannot say that about this movie. I thought this was pretty bad, honestly. I had zero sauce whatsoever. I kept hoping that something would happen to make this film compelling or interesting. And what I really struggled with in this movie is there is no character that matters in the entire film. I feel like this movie has no desire to create characters that you can relate to or empathize with. It's so much more about showcasing shock value, essentially. And there's a lot of really cheap jump scares in this, which Oz has had jump scares in his movies before, but he also has had very refined, quiet moments of horror, like in The Black Coat's Daughter, or several moments in Long Legs that are more just you witnessing something on screen, and it's not like, accompanied by a loud noise. There are so many lazy jump scares in this movie, and it was so funny because I saw like a quote about comparing this to like a David Lynch movie. And I honestly was kind of offended by that because this movie is not very smart. It thinks that it's incredibly smart, but it really isn't. And I was just really upset because I like Oz a lot. And I just feel like this was very lazy. And maybe it's like he's put so many movies out in quick succession that he's not taking enough time to kind of step back and be like, is this really as effective as I want it to be? And I'll talk about that when I break the movie down for you today. So at the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to couple Liz and Malcolm, and I think it is their 1 year anniversary, and they are going to like Malcolm's family house that's in the middle of the woods. And we can see early on their relationship. They have moments where they feel very close together and in love, but there's also a lot of moments of uncertainty where you're just not 100% sure how these two operate together. And there's clearly like questions in the back of especially Liz's head of like, is this all it's cracked up to be? And so they first get there and everything is seemingly normal until Liz starts noticing weird things around the house and things get strangely more and more sinister and creepy until at one point in the movie Malcolm has to leave because he is a doctor and one of his patients is coming out of a coma and she's left at the house by herself and things start to get more and more sinister and strange. The entirety of the film is watching this scenario play out from Liz's perspective, and can she really trust Malcolm? So, like I said, this movie was a huge disappointment to me, and there's a multitude of reasons for that. But before I get into the negatives, I do want to talk about some of the positives. Oz Perkins is an incredible visual director. He really knows how to work with his cinematographer to create very compelling visual sequences, and that's no exception in this movie. It is visually remarkable. There are so many moments in this movie that I was completely and totally blown away by the quality of the cinematography, certain moments of editing, very similar to what I said about Long Legs. Like, I just think the guy knows how to work well with his cinematographer, and there's some genuinely horrifying imagery in this movie that the cinematographer knows how to hold on to make you as a viewer feel very uncomfortable. And I think that's really one of the strongest points of this film is the really remarkable visual moments. I was not a fan of most of the performances in this movie. I thought a lot of them actually were relatively weak, but Tatiana Maslany is phenomenal. She is doing everything that she possibly can to make this movie work, and she is completely and totally committed. And every time she was on screen, I was completely and totally hooked with what was going on. But anytime it cut to a different character, I really just didn't care as much. And there's moments where you almost feel like Oz is like possibly trying to have like a comedic edge or do something, to shock the audience or make them feel uncomfortable, but it never really works, especially with how poor some of the performances are. But she was always very committed and really what made the movie work for me in the moments that it actually did work. I also think very similar to the rest of Oz's filmography, the music and the sound design is also fantastic. There are so many moments where you're just completely and totally immersed in what is going on because of the sound design and because of the score and the music that is incorporated into the movie. There's a couple of moments where there's like a very intense quiet, and then the music just kind of gets louder and louder and eventually just kind of sucks you into whatever horrific imagery that you're seeing on screen. And I appreciated that in the sound design. But that is where my positives end. This doesn't even feel like a compelling story, really. And my biggest issue with this movie, the trailer did such an amazing job by doing this thing I've never really seen in a movie trailer before, where it was showcasing two characters and like, can I trust this person and all of that. But the entire film is through Liz's perspective. So the moment that the movie starts, the whole sort of concept that the trailer had created is gone because you're not really seeing anything through his perspective. It's all through one singular perspective. And so your mind is really just like, is he bad or is he good? And so much of like the build up, you get introduced to, I think it's Malcolm's cousin early on. He just kind of shows up and staggers in, and like any sort of mystery and intrigue is just incorporated by random image of like a woman with a bag over her head or something. And it's like, I am all for abstract art house cinema. Like some of my favorite movies of all time are surreal art house films. This is not what this is whatsoever. It's honestly, it feels very confused as to what it wants to be because it wants to have this like mystery and intrigue, but the last 15 minutes of the movie is essentially one big long exposition dump telling you every single thing that's going on. And so it immediately gets rid of any sort of semblance of like an art house film, which is also frustrating because it feels like Oz thinks that this movie is much smarter than it actually is. And it's really not. It's very lazy, is the word that I would use to describe it. Honestly, like as it ended and I was sitting around thinking about it after it was over, I was like, I can't remember a lot of the moments already, which is how like Longlegs had so many amazing moments that I can just pull out in my mind. And I'm just like the iconic, like just really well put together, great moments of filmmaking. In this, it's just like it's number one, it's very poorly paced and it's relatively boring, but there's just no substance here. And like you have this story of this new couple and like turmoil in a relationship and so many different things that you can explore in a way that I think would be incredibly interesting, but it tackles it all in the most surface level way imaginable, which is one of the things about the movie that I found to be incredibly frustrating. And yeah, this is one of my biggest disappointments of the year. It's by no means like the worst thing that I've watched all year long, but it's really kind of a nothing burger. There's really nothing that would make me want to go back to watch this again, and that's disappointing. And I hope if Oz does another project in the near future, he kind of takes time, backs up, and really thinks about what he wants to do because this just was not it. So have you seen Keeper? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I was incredibly disappointed in this movie. I really did not like it all that much, and I probably wouldn't watch it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.